So this is worksheet number 8. This is going to be going over cellular and humoral immunity physiology. So this is how the cellular humoral immunity works. So first thing I want you to do, you see this picture here? You see this is right here, your antigen presenting cell. I want you to draw a line that kind of cuts this helper T cell in half. So draw a line straight through here. Right there. Half of it, so this half on your left side is going to be humoral immunity, because you can see this is a lot to do with your B cells. This side, ooh, what was that? Oh, your right side is going to have to do with your cellular mediated immunity. So we have our specific immunity, humoral, cellular mediated. That's kind of what we're going over today, or this evening. So I'm going to zoom out of this. So now that you see the picture, and we're going to go through I'm going to be flipping back and forth between the picture and everything else. So in cellular mediated immunity, cellular mediated immunity utilizes T cells. So that's what I'm going over first. In cellular immunity, the lymphocyte, so the only lymphocyte in cellular mediated is your T cell. The lymphocyte directly contacts the pathogen to destroy it. So a way your T cell attacks something is it like stabs it. It directly contacts. Humoral immunity utilizes B cells. In humoral immunity, the lymphocyte, also the B cell, does not contact the pathogen to destroy it. So if I am the B cell, this is my antibody, the marker is. I'm going to attack something, and the marker is going to kill it. I don't have to touch it to kill it, which I almost did when you walked in. I almost threw it, and I was like, oh my goodness, someone's coming in. I would have felt really bad. So yeah, so B cells do not contact. So this first worksheet is kind of a little confusing, but we'll get through it. So this first part, these two people, this guy, this one right here who's getting stabbed is the pathogen. Right here. This is the pathogen, this is the threat. This guy who's lunging forward and stabbing him is the cytotoxic T cell. You need to know how to spell cytotoxic, it's right here. So that's what this guy is. So see how he's directly contacting him to kill him? Yeah, that's cellular mediated immunity. So we're going to have T cells. Yeah, direct contact. All right. So for this worksheet with cellular immunity, you can see, I'm going to erase this chart. So your worksheet kind of is divided into halves. I'm just going to show you how it works. And this doesn't quite make sense until we move on to the picture. Oh, hey. Can you guys see the font okay? Okay. So this side of it, this side. Let me see if I can get all, yeah, I can get that. T cells. Okay, so this side of it is going to have to do with the helper. So this side of your worksheet, this is going to have to do with your helper T cells. This side of it is going to have to do some with the cytotoxic T cells. And this correlates right hand in hand with your picture. Because when you look at the top of this diagram, I'm going to zoom in really fast to help kind of divide it. This right here is your helper T cell. It aligns here. And this is your cytotoxic T cell on this side. So that's kind of how I made the worksheet, and it's a little confusing, but yeah. Because I know there's like 2 2s, 1 2 3s, oh shoot. However, the reason why I made two twos, see there's a 2 here and a 2 here, is because that's what's happening at the same time. You know, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the steps, but there's 2 things going on. So that's why it's lined out like this. That's why there's 2. So when we go over it a second time, I think it'll make a little more sense. But the very first thing that happens, a macrophage engulfs the pathogen. So this has to do with your, I'll give you each a, I should have printed these out separately. Here you go. So if you look at the pictures, and if you need to mark on these, go ahead. This is so you can look at it. I like to draw macrophages like Pac-Man. Well, there's your macrophage right up there, right? There's your macrophage. This guy right there up at the top. So first thing that happens, this guy right here is going to eat something. So a macrophage is going to engulf a pathogen. That's what happens on the helper T side. Okay? So the T cell the macrophage then displays the antigen on its surface, thus becoming an antigen-presenting cell. So the macrophage is going to destroy this pathogen and display it on its surface. That's like in your picture. You can see it, you kind of see it right there as it is. But it's displaying it, it's destroying it. It becomes the antigen-presenting cell now. So looking at your picture, step two, does the T cell utilize the antigen from the antigen-presenting cell to detect the threat? Yes, it does. So when we flip back to the picture really fast, you can see that it connects. Right here, see? These are the little yellow things are the antigen-presenting cell showing. It connects. The cytotoxic T cell connects, and the helper T cell also connects. So this activates the helper T cell and the cytotoxic T cell. So yes, these then become activated because the antigen-presenting cell. A helper T cell will detect the antigen. When the helper T cell detects the danger, it will proliferate into 2 more helper T cells. So then your T cell, oh, I threw that marker. Your T cell, I got it. Your T cell is going to come along, and it's going to attach. It's going to attach and kind of make contact, and it's going to split into 2 more helper Ts. That's step 3. Okay. A cytotoxic T cell then will detect the same antigen. So we're going to say cyto T. I'm just going to draw on this side because it's on this side of the worksheet. He's going to detect it. He's going to be aware of it. But he's not going to do anything, so he's going to wait. He's going to wait. So when you look at your sheet, I'm not going to scroll up anymore, but when you look at your sheet, you see this arrow right here, this big long arrow on the side. This indicates that your cytotoxic T cell is waiting for instructions because the helper T cell is the commander. Your helper T cell, let me just make this helper, T helper. Your helper T cell tells your cytotoxic T cell what to do. So it's going to wait. So the cytotoxic T cell will then detect the same antigen. The cytotoxic T cell is inactive, but it is aware. So it'll wait for a while to be activated. Number 1 is in red. Okay. So number 1 is there. guy eating it. Okay. So step number 4, because my black isn't working, I'm going to put step number 4 in red also. Step number 4, you have your T helper. And I'm going to take a picture of this if that is helpful, which is this guy. Your T helper cell is then going to, right, we talked about cytokines being like a way of communicating. Another way of communicating is releasing interleukin-2. So interleukin-2 is part of step 4. That's what the chemical is right here. Okay, so when we look at our sheet, we have our helper T cell, right, proliferated, it's split right here, but then we see that there are dots coming from it and going to the cytotoxic T cell. You see that? So that's interleukin-2. So that's the T cell saying to the cytotoxic T cell, hey, we need to activate, we need to get our stuff into gear. So the cytotoxic T cell will receive interleukin-2 from the helper T cell. Cytotoxic T cell will now become activated. That's true. So it will now become active. And then step 5, the cytotoxic T cell will then proliferate and specialize into memory T and cytotoxic T. So cytotoxic T cell in step 5 will then split into memory and another cytotoxic. So it'll increase recruits. So that is that. So when we look at the top, we look at our picture, okay? Oh, actually, no, we're going to look at the outcome. So outcome, this guy's a cytotoxic T, right? So cytotoxic T cell will directly contact other pathogens and destroy pathogens with the displayed antigen. So that's what cytotoxic T does. So now looking at your sheet, looking at just what you wrote just now, we're going to now apply it to the big, the big picture. Okay? I know I was scrolling a little bit. So step 1. Does someone want to read off step 1 of cellular mediated? Yeah. What was step 1 that you guys filled out? So that's what's in red. A macrophage engulfs the pathogen. What then happens in step 2?
The macrophage displays the antigen on its surface has become an antigen-presenting cell.
Okay, so do you understand that? Okay, so that's what's happening over here. It's right here, it's showing it's eating it. It's eating that pathogen, and you see the little circles around inside of it. It's destroying it and putting that antigen on its surface. So it becomes the antigen presenting cell. What then happens? So the other number 2.
The T cell utilizes the antigen.
So yeah, utilize the antigen to detect the threat. There's that. What about, so now step number 3.
Helper T cells detect the antigen.
So helper T detects the antigen.
Once it detects the danger, it
Proliferates, which means it splits. So you see here's your helper T, and there's proliferation. It's splitting.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll split, right? At the same time as it splits, so this happens, and the cytotoxic T cell happens at the same time. Cytotoxic T is going to wait, right? So same thing on the other side of step 3. You want to do that one?
The cytotoxic T cell will detect the same antigen on the
The cytotoxic T cell is
but aware, and then it's waiting
waiting to be,
instructions.
yeah, So it's waiting to be activated. So then they kind of meet halfway. They meet right here, right? So your cytotoxic T cell that has been waiting, so step 4, helper T cells will then secrete, what is it? Yep, interleukin. What did I put?
Is that the same thing as where they use, it reminds me of like the interstitial fluid, is that kind of what it is? Or is that something different?
What do you mean by interstitial fluid?
Yeah, like is that the same thing kind of thing, or no?
I don't quite know what you're asking. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think I am understanding.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, basically, I don't know if this helps, but it's just communicating to the cytotoxic T cell. It's kind of passing along the message. That's what the interleukin is. And it's specific for, in what we're going to go over B cells, but in the B cells, it's called cytokines. That's what mostly everything is called. But when it's T helper to T cytotoxic T, it's going to be called interleukin. But it's still the message, If I'm here, I'm talking, what I'm saying is my cytotoxic T saying attack, attack, or my interleukin saying attack, attack. So then cytotoxic T will receive it and become activated. And then cytotoxic T will then proliferate. It'll split in memory T and cytotoxic T. And then this cytotoxic T that was produced right here, this one will then go and attack the danger or the threat. And it will perform cell-to-cell contact. It will directly kind of stab it. And then,
That's the one that does all the fighting.
yeah, that one does the fighting. Yeah, this one is the insane one. It likes to fight. So, any questions on cell-mediated? All right. Now, then we'll flip over to this next side. We're going to be going over humoral. So I know you guys drew a line right down the middle, right here. So now we're going to be on this side. So when we look at, I'm going to take a picture of this really fast, because maybe I can. Okay. I'm going to erase this, but I took a picture, so if anyone wants it, I'll put it on the Google Drive. And if I don't, please remind me. So next we're going to have B cells, right? Just looking on that side of the picture. B cells, also humoral immunity. So it's going to be this side. You have your helper T's here, you have your B cells here, your antigen presenting cell, but what's all with this? So just like the other picture, I'm going to divide it, right? On this side, we're going to have mainly our helper T, because your helper T cells are the commander, so they're going to do something that's going to cause your B cells to react. And then we're going to have our B cells and antibodies. And just like the other worksheet, we're going to go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So this is like what's happening in order, and this is what's happening at the same time across. By the way, doing that last one, did that kind of make sense? How it kind of, okay, because I tried doing this with the other section, and I guess I didn't explain it at first well, so that was on me. Okay, so this is your B cell. So it's going to kind of sound kind of repetitive. So looking at the picture really fast, the outcome, this lady right here is your B cell. The arrow she's shooting is the antibody, and this guy right here is the threat. Yeah, the pathogen, yeah. So you see how she doesn't actually have to kill him, but her antibodies do. That's kind of the big idea. So there's that. So step 1, okay, just like last time, step 1, a macrophage, which is our Pac-Man, is going to engulf a pathogen and display its antibodies on its surface. Right? So that's step 1. I just did it up here. Step 2, it's going to display the antigens on its surface and become an antigen-presenting cell. B cells, and this now number 2 on this side is asking if B cells utilize the antigen-presenting cell to detect the threat. It does not. Okay, the B cells don't use it. The only reason why we need the antigen-presenting cell is why. Why do we need it? We don't need it for the B cells, but we do need it for the T cells. So even though we're talking about humoral immunity, you cannot have your B cells activated without your T cells. You need your T cells to be active. So that's from your antigen-presenting cell. So I'm going to do that in blue so it's kind of consistent with the colors. So when we scroll back up to the picture, oh shoot, I'm going to scroll up. You see how this is happening at the same time? This happens at the same time, and then this happens at the same time. It's kind of going down, like in order. Your B cell isn't touching your antigen-presenting cell. However, your T cell is. So your T cell needs it, so it's still going to do something. Your B cell, though, kind of like combines. So if this is like the germ, your B cell kind of combines with the antigen, and they're like, oh, you're a threat. But it doesn't kill it that way. It kind of like is aware of the antigen, but it doesn't really do anything to it. It's not activated. So that is that. So macrophage displays the antigen on its surface. The B cell does not utilize antigen-presenting cell. So that is false. That statement is false. Step 3, a helper T cell, which is right here. A helper T cell detects the antigen. So your T cell will detect the antigen. So they kind of connect right there. And then when the helper T cell detects the danger, it will proliferate into 2 more helper T cells. So helper T, helper T. Over here for step 3, the B cell will combine with the same antigen within the body. So your B cell, like we just saw up there, kind of combined with it, and it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to touch you. That's happening with step 3. So while the T cell is splitting, your B cell is going to be kind of touching it's just going to be aware of something else. It's not actually going to. So this star thing is, make it a ghost, make it consistent. So it's kind of touching it. But it's just going to wait now because it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know if it's a threat. It doesn't know if it's just the red blood cell. So the B cell is going to wait, just like earlier the cytotoxic T cell was waiting. The B cell is inactive but aware of the threat, and it'll wait to be activated. So when we go back to the picture, see this arrow? This arrow indicates the B cell is waiting. And it's waiting to be activated. So step 4, now this is the good stuff. Your helper T will then secrete cytokines. So earlier it was interleukin, now it's going to be cytokines. That's what this chemical is. These cytokines are then going to go to these B cells, this one over here, this B cell. And the B cell is then going to become activated. And when the B cell is activated, it's going to produce antibodies to kill the threat. So this is the cytokine, these are the antibodies. So B cell receives cytokines, B cell is now activated. Oh, well, before B cell can secrete antibodies, it'll also, so step 5, sorry, I got ahead of myself. B cell will proliferate into memory B, and it will also proliferate into plasma B. And the plasma B cell is the one that secretes the antibodies. Because blood plasma, plasma B, antibodies go in the plasma. So the big takeaway with this one is plasma B cells will produce antibodies that will circulate in the body or blood and bind to antigens and destroying the pathogens. So I'm going to scroll back up to the picture. We can look at it a little more scientifically. Did you guys wait? Got it okay? Okay, I know this is a lot to take in, especially because you've been here for 3 hours. So looking at this, oh shoot, turn, no. So we're going to go this step, right across. So step 1, a macrophage engulfs. A macrophage displays the antigen on its surface, thus becoming an antigen-presenting cell. B cell, on the other hand, does not use it. The T cell does, but the B cell doesn't. And I know here it's flipped. So this is happening on this side, but I wanted the format to be the same. So I didn't have much control of that. But so that happens across. Your B cell kind of touches something and it's just like, I don't know what you are. So on this side, a helper T cell detects the antigen. When the helper T cell detects the threat, it will proliferate. Proliferation, it'll split. At the same time, the T cell is the helper T is splitting. The B cell is combining, and it will be aware, but it will be inactive. It still doesn't know what to do. So the B cell is going to wait. It's going to wait for the T cell to tell it what to do. So that's what this arrow is. It indicates the B cell is waiting. So that's like what, step 3. Step 4 is right here. Your helper T cell proliferates. Your helper T cell will now secrete cytokines to the B cell. So here's your T cell. It'll secrete cytokines and activate the B cell. The B cell will then become activated. And I know when it doesn't show it up here because the formatting was an issue for me, but in your worksheet you have it splitting. Yeah. You have the B cell splitting into plasma B and memory B. It's a little, I kind of stole that from another part of the book. But that would be, and then step 5, the B cell will then proliferate. So right here it's showing it splitting into memory B and plasma B. Memory B will remember what to do. It is recruit. It is saying, okay, I am in training, so when this happens again, I'll split and I'll be ready to go. Plasma B cells produce the antibodies. The antibodies is what actually kills the infection. So that is the outcome. B cell will utilize antibodies, travel throughout the body. Antibodies will bind to the antigen. Antigen is on the surface of the pathogen. And these are antigens. That's what antibodies attach to. And that's what will kill it, is that binding. So this is like a bow and arrow. She is the B cell. The arrow is the antibody, and he is the pathogen. So he gets shot. Does this make sense? More sense. Okay. Do you want me to go through it a second time, or do you feel like, you know, you have it, or? Because we can just go, because I can just pull up the picture. We can just walk through it again if you want, or.
Doesn't matter to me. I think I have it.
Okay, neat. And then if not, you know, next week we'll go through it again. But I wanted to make sure we got the hard stuff done. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, this concludes the worksheet number 8. And I will send these pictures to you guys. I'll put this on the drive. So when I send you the answers inside that folder, do you guys know how to use Google Drive? Okay?
Yeah. I think you
Yeah.
showed me the other time.
Okay. Well, if you have an issue, just email me.